Hello, it's Mimi. How are you? Are you good? Are you having a good day? Mimi's got another book for you today. This book is called Wombat Stew, and there are lots and lots of different Australian animals in this book to talk about. So let's get started. One day, on the banks of a billabong, a very clever dingo caught a wombat. So that's the dingo, and unfortunately that's the wombat. He's got his head in the billy can. And the dingo decided to make wombat stew, gooey, brewy, yummy, chewy wombat stew. Oh no, poor wombat. Platypus came ambling up the bank. "Good day, Dingo," he said, snapping his bill. "What's all that water for?" "I'm brewing up a gooey, chewy stew with that fat wombat," said Dingo with a toothy grin. See all his teeth? Ooh. "If you ask me," said Platypus, "the best thing for a gooey stew is mud. Big blops of billabong mud." "Blops of mud?" Dingo laughed. "What a good idea. Righto, in they go." So Platypus scooped up big blobs of mud with his tail and tipped them into the billy can. Around the bubbling billy, Dingo danced and sang. "Wombat stew, gooey brewy, yummy chewy wombat stew." Oh, now it's all right. Wombat isn't in there. That's just the water and the mud. Waltzing out from the shade of the ironbarks are trees, came Emu. She arched her graceful neck over the brew. "Oh ho, Dingo," she fluttered. "What have we here?" "Gooey, chewy wombat stew," boasted Dingo. "If only it were a bit more chewy," she sighed. "But don't worry, a few feathers will set it right." "Feathers?" Dingo smiled. "That would be chewy." Righto, in they go. So into the gooey brew, Emu dropped her finest feathers. Around and around the bubbling billy, Dingo danced and sang. "Wombat stew, crunchy munchy for my lunchy, wombat stew." Oh dear, that's okay. Look, Wombat's still over here. He's with his friends. He's not in the pot. It's just the water and the mud and the feathers. Old Blue Tongue, the lizard, came sliding off his sun-soaked stone. "Silly Dingo," he hissed. "There are no flies in this stew. Can't be wombat stew without crunchy flies in it." And he stuck out his bright blue tongue. "There's a lot to be said for flies," said Dingo, rubbing his paws together. Righto, in they go. So Lizard snapped 100 flies from the air with his long blue tongue and flipped them into the gooey, chewy stew. Around and around and around the bubbling billy, Dingo danced and sang. "Wombat stew, crunchy munchy for my lunchy wombat stew." Now the animals are going, "Ooh, he's a bit silly, isn't he?" It's okay, Wombat's not inside the stew. Up through the red dust popped Echidna. "Wait a bit, not so fast," he bristled, shaking the red dust from his quills. Now, I've been listening to all this advice, and take it from me, for a munchy stew, you need slugs and bugs and creepy crawlies. Doesn't sound very nice. Dingo wagged his tail. "Why, I should have thought of that. Righto, in they go." So Echidna dug up all sorts of creepy crawlies and dropped them into the chewy, gooey, crunchy stew. The very clever dingo stirred and stirred, all the while singing, Wombat stew, wombat stew, hot and spicy, oh so nicey, wombat stew. There's Wombat over there. Wombat's still safe. He's not in the pot. Just then, the sleepy-eyed koala climbed down the scribbly gum tree. Look here, he yawned. Oh, any bush cook knows you can't make a spicy stew without gum nuts. Leave it to a koala to think of gum nuts. Dingo laughed and licked his whiskers. Righto, in they go. And into the gooey, chewy, crunchy, munchy stew, koala shook lots and lots of gum nuts. Aha, cried Dingo. Now my stew is missing only one thing. What's that? Asked the animals. That fat wombat. Wait! Stop! Hang on, Dingo! You can't put that wombat in the stew yet. All the other animals are telling him to stop. Oops. Sorry, Mimi can't get the page open. All right. Why not? You haven't tasted it. Righto, I'll taste it. And that very clever dingo bent over the billy and took a great big slurp of stew. And what do you think happened next? Ah! I'm poisoned, he howled. You've all tricked me. And he dashed away deep in the bush, never again to sing, Wombat stew, wombat stew, gooey brewy, yummy chewy, wombat stew. And there's Wombat. Wombat's doing your dance now. And that's the end of the book. So I've got a little wombat toy here. Can you see him? He's very cute, isn't he? Little wombat toy. And I'll tell you something fun about wombats. Can you see how he's a bit of a square shape? Wombats have square poop. They do. It comes out in little cubes. So if you ever see a wombat, you might want to have a look. All right, that's all from Mimi and Wombat today. Remember, Mimi loves you so, so much.